Welcome to Myth Mentality with Justin A.Williams. And as you can see, I'm an author of Reborn, Virtue's Constellation. This is the first edition. Got my face on it. And then we also have the second edition, which has some cool artwork for every chapter depicting the scenes and major battles that happen in the book. Same book, just different version. So get yourself both or one. Why not get both? Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and wherever books are sold online. And then, of course, I'm going to shout out my mother's book, Death of the Good Girl. It's basically about the decay of the black middle-class urban neighborhood in New York in the late 70s, early 80s. Fascinating read. Really fantastically written. It's written as a personal memoir, so it's kind of a love story to the neighborhood she used to know and seeing where we're going in the future, if policy is going to improve in New York to the point where she no longer feels like there was a death that happened to her. So anyway, today what we're going to talk about is horses in mythology. It's the year of the horse in Chinese zodiac. So that's pretty fantastic thing for most people because the horse is an auspicious sign. To jump right into Chinese zodiac storytelling, the horse is represented as a bold actor in life. It's different than the snake from last year, which represents to some people regression and the tying up of old things, but it's also the shedding of skin, and that can be painful, right? A lot of people go through what they call the dark night of the soul. They go through the looking glass self. They have to reflect on what has happened to them and what will happen to them, and instead of being able to really act on things during the year of the snake, it's a year to take a step back, reflect, and really make sure that you are prepared for what's to come. And that's the horse. And of course, this is not just any horse, it's the fire horse. Myself, I'm a fire tiger, so I relate to the fire horse in a special way. But the fire horse is one that's especially bold, especially forward running, and especially hard to tame. So you may feel sometimes that while you're on your chariot riding the horse year through success, sometimes some things get out of hand and some things go out of control if you haven't tamed your horse correctly. Also, there's a problem, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? So a lot of what happens this year is on you. Once the horse leads you or you lead with the horse to the promised land of your choice, whether that's a job or a relationship or whatever you're looking for, you may find that you're at a crossroads and you don't know who to rely on to make the decision. And this year especially, you're relying on you. So that's a little synopsis of how that works in the zodiac. But horses are found ubiquitously throughout the myths of where they've been. As we know, because of the New World Contact, the Columbian Exchange, between you can say Mesoamerica or South America, Central America, and then North America, horses returned to the greater continent of the United States, Central America, Mexico, Honduras, and then obviously South America. Now I say return because ancient times, probably when humans were just starting to come around, there were horses in the mainland of the Americas, but they disappear at some point, possibly because of an ice age or something like that. But they do return with the Europeans. And so they interact and they interface with the mythologies and the religions of the different peoples that are in these areas. Horses are often seen depicted as very wise spiritual creatures. They have a connectiveness with humans that is far beyond just the physical to some people. That some people even say that horses have an electromagnetic kind of foreground around them that allows them to really connect or disconnect quite simply, but also quite powerfully with people of different predilections, right? That they're judging you, right? To see if you can ride on them, right? It's a privilege to do so. In the ancient stories, whether it's the story of Alexander and the Great and his first horse, or it's the story of even the unicorn, right? Horses are constantly this character that humanity is trying to wrestle with, understand, and befriend. but also there's a challenge there. You have to be in the right mindset. You have to come with the right intention and purpose. There's no lying before the horse. In myth and probably in reality. If you ask anybody who's ever ridden a horse, I used to ride horses when I was a kid. I can tell you personally that each horse is to its own. And when you are riding a different horse on a different day, that can be destabilizing and stabilizing because you are really learning all over again. It's not like riding a bike. Certain skills apply, but it's like reigniting or re-meeting someone you feel odd familiarity with, but you don't really know. Anyway, so why are horses often associated with the sea? I find is interesting. If you look at Greek mythology, horses are associated with the god Poseidon. You might think, well, why wouldn't horses be more associated with a charioteer god, maybe someone like an Ares or an Apollo or even an Artemis? But they're not. Artemis has the deer, Ares has the ram, Apollo pretty much has the hawk, and sometimes the sheep. But explicitly, horses belong to the realm of Poseidon. Now, horses don't go into the ocean, right? You famously, as I said before, will understand that you'll never see a horse really go in the ocean to swim, even if attacked by a predator. So why the connection? Well, the connection is that the waters of the ocean are similar in terms of the domains of what makes the land rattle, right? Earthquakes. And for the maritime Greeks, seafaring people, earthquakes do not emanate from land, they emanate from Poseidon, they emanate from deep in the sea. As we know now, many earthquakes do emanate from the sea, and thus tsunamis. But the thundering sound of a herd of horses sounds like the thundering sound of a herd of waves coming towards, crashing down on the sea, crashing down on a society. And just like you need to tame a horse, you need to tame that herd, right, before it does something destructive. You need to tame the sea, right, in the best way you can. So the Greeks saw the duality and the synergy there between the horse and sea. Also, Poseidon has a myth where he pursues in his own kind of violent and toxic way Demeter. And when Demeter turns into a horse to escape, he likewise turns into a horse to pursue her. The myth is obviously quite dark, but it is a story of transformation. It's a story of how in some ways the ancient Greeks saw this deep kind of sexual connection also with the land and sea. Just like the Egyptians saw it with the earth and the sky, between Geb, the earth, and then Nut, the sky. There is a deep kind of connection and bond that we also have with horses in terms of they are the ultimate masculine character, right? When you see a horse, they are all muscled. They're not like cows that are docile and kind of flabby, but sweet characters anyway. Horses are not like that. Horses are only sweet to you if they choose to be and if you earn it. Horses usually are quite wild and quite rambunctious and are not afraid to defend the herd, not afraid to defend their young, not afraid to defend themselves, or even a human that they care about. So that masculine, protective kind of nature is there to connect with as human beings. And as the god Poseidon, for the Greeks, he was the uber masculine god. Whatever your feelings are about the fact that obviously the stories about him often feature abuse and rape of women. If you really look at some of the other stories of Poseidon, with the trident, the commander of one of the most important domains to the Greeks, which is the sea, that he may have at some time even surpassed Zeus in terms of importance to the Greeks, especially the Athenians. I mean, in terms of worship of a god, the founding myth of Athens does not have a story of Zeus involved in it at all, the king of the gods. it has Poseidon, the horse, right? And then also Athena is depicted often with horses as a crown, horses riding, even though she's not ever really depicted with a chariot. So I think what the Athenians are telling us is that there is the feminine appreciation of the horse as the masculine protector, but then you also have the stampeding herd, the thing that must be controlled, the thing that cannot be contained. Just as Poseidon does not contain himself when pursuing Demeter, the herd will not contain itself in its pursuit of whatever it's after. I'm not necessarily a horse expert in terms of their patterns of movement, but I am sure that they migrate, and they migrate for various reasons, and when they do it loudly. So where does this leave us with myth mentality? How does this myths about horses, and there's plenty more to talk about, but I'll lead you to the water here. How does this help us with who we are? Well, it's good to understand that the feminine appreciation of horses is one of connectivity and almost maybe parentalness, in terms of the horse is seen as a positive masculine figure. For the male, we must always remember control. We must always remember restraint. And we must always remember that we are a part of a whole, right? We are not the whole. Poseidon oftentimes finds that when he doesn't like a human, ironically, it's a human that does not respect what I just said. Odysseus, for example, does not respect that he's a small part of a bigger universe. Odysseus thinks he can do it all at the end of the Iliad after tricking the Trojans. Odysseus thinks he does not need the gods, right? And Poseidon is the god, not anyone else, that pursues him like a herd of horses throughout the Mediterranean and will not let it go. Now, I don't know if that speaks to the stubbornness or unforgivingness of horses, but it certainly speaks to the unforgivingness of men. Too often, I think that men, we get stuck in tunnel vision in our pursuits. And just like the rage of a horse, when it's angry or when you really ride it too hard, we can become overcome and tired of that pursuit without really knowing it and how it's affecting us. So we really have to be careful and use Poseidon as a cautionary tale, not as a role model. I don't mean to say that the male connection to the horse is somehow explicitly toxic. It is not. If you look at the great charioteer gods or the charioteer people, look at the Scythians, for example. They had female warriors that rode horses, famously, but males rode horses too. And it was a part of how you grew up. It was a part of how you were reared. And that connection to an animal of whatever predilection. So it can be a dog, it can be a rabbit. Some people have rabbits, fish. These things can embolden us if we take the lesson from the animal and how they behave to really fit as a cog in the greater machine of life. And while horses famously buck that system sometimes, and that's good for men to do that, right? I think in education, when we're raising young boys, we should perhaps let them have 15 minutes more of recess than they get, allow them to have more nap time than they get, allow them to have more play than they get, specifically because I do think that when you're raising boys, boys need to be more physical, I think, in their dynamics of testing the world, just like horses are, right? Running free, running rampant. While I think girls oftentimes need to follow the intellectual pursuits. They can obviously do sports and be physical in that way, but I think there's a hyperness to boys that I think should be fed when they're young and not squashed, just like the horse, right? So when we're thinking about what kind of people are successful at riding a horse, what kind of cultures have done so, these are not necessarily cultures that have been ones that have attacked other cultures. Cherokees, Hopis, Pueblos. These are cultures that usually, while there was war and strife among them, were known to be a little bit more of the temperate peoples. If you look at early Greek culture, right? The Greeks are not mobilizing in the Minoan sense or in the Mycenaean age to necessarily attack other people, unless you take the story of Troy to be the truth, which it probably is. So, to wrap up, remember that the horse is an example of the cautionary tale and the benefits of riding free. And that if you choose to live by that sword, you may die by that sword as well. But there's always a positive at the end with the horse. And that is that horses are seen as a liminal figure. They, just like Hermes in myth, and our next episode will be about Hermes. We're going to talk about the difference between the shepherd and the wolf, right? How you need to be both. But in this context, horses are often seen as travailing different realms. They go to the underworld, they go to heaven, right? Look at the story of Bellerophon. He rides a winged horse up to heaven, Pegasus, right? The horse is also seen as a character that can go through different stages of the world and be unhindered, not be hindered. So it's a psychopomp in some ways. Some people feel that horses have a special sense of the divine, the extraterrestrial, the ghost in the room, so to speak, as dogs and cats are often associated with. So this kind of sight beyond sight, this act beyond act, is a great example of fearlessness. And in the year of the horse, like this year, you will need to confront your fears, use fear wisely. Fear can be used as a tool. It teaches us sometimes how to evade and hide, be strategic, but also to lose some of those fears, those really traumatic fears, those things that the snake year just could not shed away. Perhaps the confrontation of the smash of the horse herd can really get rid of those things that have been bothering you. All right, so that's Myth Mentality for today. Remember, I'm an author of Reborn, Virtue's Constellation, which you can get on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. I look forward to our next episode. And yeah, so thank you. Remember, like, share, subscribe. Please smash that like button. And also check me out on Instagram at Professor Jaws, Twitter at Dubs Everlasting, that's DUBZ, and on Facebook as Justin A. Williams, my author page. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on Myth Mentality.